What has to happen for Charles Leclerc, one of the coldest and most analytical drivers on the grid, to be visibly shocked by the performance of his own teammate? What happened in the Abu Dhabi test seemed, at first, a season-ending routine. Mechanical tests, data collection, aerodynamic reviews. But what Ferrari was about to discover hid one of the most serious design and maintenance errors in the team's recent history. Telemetry collected throughout 2025 showed inconsistencies that had been attributed to external factors. Suspension settings, engine maps, even Hamilton's driving style. But it was nothing like that. During structural load tests carried out at Yas Marina, after completely disassembling the SF25 chassis that Hamilton had used for much of the championship, engineers detected an abnormal flex in the front axle. This type of flexion, while common to minimal controlled degrees, in this case was completely outside of tolerable limits. The car literally gave way under certain lateral loading conditions, particularly in high-speed corners such as Turn 9 of the Abu Dhabi circuit. Instead of maintaining the rigidity necessary to support the aerodynamic load, the car bent, reducing the support asymmetrically. This means that every time Hamilton took those corners at more than 250 km per hour, the car did not respond with the necessary stability. He lost balance on the front axle, something imperceptible to the engineers from the wall, but catastrophic for the pilot inside the cockpit. In a category where performance differences are measured in thousands, this type of mechanical failure can destroy not just a result, but an entire season. Leclerc, who had dominated Hamilton internally for much of the year, was informed of the results by the technical team itself. The reaction was not simply one of competitive surprise. It was a reaction of genuine human concern. According to sources close to the Ferrari garage, the Monegasque was visibly upset to learn that his teammate had been driving on the verge of structural failure throughout the championship. The impact was not only technical or sporting, it was personal. For weeks, Leclerc had interpreted Hamilton's complaints about something broken or an inexplicable imbalance in the car as attempts to justify his results. The internal story was that the Briton, now a veteran, was struggling to adapt to a car that required a different style. But now, with the evidence in hand, that narrative was collapsing. Everything indicated that Hamilton was right from the beginning, and no one in Maranello had wanted to listen to him. This type of revelation has profound side effects on a team like Ferrari. For Leclerc, it implies that his apparent superiority on the track could have been based, at least in part, on a covert technical advantage. And for engineers, it means reviewing every quality control procedure, every structural design decision, every factory simulation. Because if something as fundamental as chassis integrity was overlooked for so many months, what other weaknesses have gone undetected? Most disturbing of all is that this phantom bug, as it is now known internally, left no visible traces. There were no brakes, no system alerts, no real-time alarms. The car worked, until its behavior was analyzed in detail. In the words of an engineer who participated in the evaluation, it was like driving with one leg without knowing it. And that, in Formula One, can be deadly. Leclerc now carries that understanding. He is no longer simply competing against a fallen veteran, but against a Hamilton who has survived a defective car, has remained calm under pressure, and who has still managed to stay in the fight. That realization is what left him literally in shock. While the discovery of the structural failure of Hamilton's SF25 still hung in the air like a newly detonated bomb, the atmosphere in the Ferrari pit took an even more dramatic turn. The plan for this post-season test in Abu Dhabi included, in addition to the technical reviews, the first laps with the development mule for the technical regulations that will come into force in 2026. These mules, as they are known in Formula One jargon, are not definitive cars, but rather hybrid platforms designed to simulate the aerodynamic, mechanical and structural behavior of what will be the cars of the new regulatory cycle. Ferrari knew that it had to entrust this test to a driver with experience, technical sensitivity, and the ability to identify problems at a millimeter level. And he chose Lewis Hamilton. The choice was no coincidence. Hamilton has worked in multiple technical eras, from the transition from V8s to turbo hybrids, through the complex cars of 2022, and his ability to offer precise feedback is considered legendary in the paddock. When the Briton took to the track with the mule, it was not a high-profile event. There were no official cameras, no real-time data was released. But among the technicians who were present, and among the few reporters with access to internal telemetry, a word began to circulate: reborn. From the first long run, the car's behavior changed radically. The balance was stable, the traction coming out of slow corners was much cleaner, and above all, the front axle that had betrayed it all season now responded with surgical precision. Hamilton, accustomed to fighting with an unpredictable chassis, now seemed in control of a car that obeyed every indication. He did not need to constantly correct the trajectory. It didn't lose the front end in fast corners. There were no vibrations. Finally, after months, the car stopped being a hidden enemy and became a true ally. Times began to fall. Lap after lap, Hamilton set consistent, fast, and above all, error-free records. The long-run simulation was so stable that the engineers found little room for adjustments. It was as if the pilot and the machine had connected immediately. The data that circulated internally was clear. Up to 0.9 seconds per lap faster than any other driver in similar conditions, including Leclerc himself. Charles watched all this from the wall in silence. I was witnessing not only a good technical test, but a statement. Hamilton had not only been limited by his car during 2025, now he demonstrated, with facts, that with a balanced machine he could unlock a devastating rhythm. A pace that he had not shown all year because simply the car did not allow it. But this goes beyond lap time. What really shook Leclerc was Hamilton's body language at every turn. The way he attacked curbs, how he braked late without losing the rear axle, how he managed brake balance with a finesse that had not been visible since his dominant time at Mercedes. It was a version of Hamilton that many thought had died out due to age or frustration. But no, it was there, latent, waiting for the right moment. The Ferrari garage, for the first time all year, felt a change in energy. The engineers who had worked with Charles all season began to talk about the clarity in Lewis's technical reports. The type of feedback each person gave began to be compared. And quietly, people began to think about how to build the car of 2026 not only around statistical analysis, but also around the sensitivity of a driver who had just proven that, with the right car, he could still dominate. This poses a scenario of technical and political tension. Ferrari will have to make key decisions about where to focus development. Will Leclerc's smooth, methodical driving style be prioritized, or Hamilton's more aggressive and reactive approach? Both paths are not necessarily compatible. And the fact that Hamilton has shown with the mule may tip the balance. Sometimes a simple test can alter the internal dynamics of a team more than an entire season. That is precisely what happened at Ferrari after the post-season test in Abu Dhabi. What for many was an experimental session without immediate consequences, for those within the team and especially for Charles Leclerc, was the equivalent of an internal earthquake that completely changed the way hierarchies are perceived. Because it wasn't just about data or telemetry or even Hamilton's lap time. What really moved was the axis of symbolic power within the team. Until then, Leclerc had exercised tacit leadership at Ferrari. He was the youngest driver, the one who had carried the red flag during the toughest seasons, the favorite of many engineers who saw him grow within the structure. In 2025, despite Hamilton's media arrival, Charles was still the technical and moral reference. Every tuning decision, every update, every virtual simulation passed through its filter. But what happened in Abu Dhabi raised doubts. And those doubts, within a team like Ferrari, are like cracks that grow silently under the surface. Hamilton was not only faster with the 2026 mule, he was clearer in his feedback, more consistent, more effective, and above all, more influential. During the subsequent analysis at Maranello, several engineers began to debate internally whether certain design decisions made for the SF25 should have been adapted sooner to Lewis's comments. What were previously subjective intuitions of the British are now reinterpreted as ignored technical warnings. And that completely changes the perception of its technical credibility. This creates an extremely complex scenario. Ferrari now faces a 2026 season in which, for the first time since the departure of Sebastian Vettel, there could be a real leadership conflict between its drivers. Because Charles Leclerc can no longer trust that his mastery of the internal structure is sufficient. He knows that Hamilton has regained ground not only on the track, but in the hallways, in technical meetings, in the simulation laboratories. 2026 will not just be a new regulatory cycle. It will be a silent battle for technical, moral, and symbolic control of the Ferrari team. And now, more than ever, that battle is wide open. What Charles Leclerc witnessed in Abu Dhabi was not simply a change of narrative. It was a moment of revelation. The type of moment that redefines trajectories, reorders hierarchies, and sows doubts in even the most steadfast pilots. What seemed to be the silent epilogue of a failed season ended up being the prologue of a new chapter that threatens to completely alter the natural order within Ferrari. Leave me your impressions, what you think about all this.